Bye. What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this POV review by Autobahn. My name is Max, and today we are having a look at one of... loud. We're having a look at one of the coolest Porsches of recent history, I think, and a really rare one. So they only made 1,250 of these Sport Classics. This is the 992 Sport Classic. Of course, they also made a 997 Sport Classic, which kind of kicked off the whole retro, resto mod retro thing back in 2009. Apparently they pitched that idea in 2005 because they thought that they wanted to bring back sort of the cool and exclusive limited run cars. They only made 250 of that 997, so that one is even more rare. And back then people were like, why would you pay that kind of money for what is basically a Carrera S with a bit of extra bits and bobs? Well, this time they did it a bit differently, because this thing has a completely different layout than other Porsche 911s, which is very cool. Today I'm going to show you around it. I'll show you all the cool things you get on a Sport Classic, both on the exterior and the interior, and then we'll take it for a drive towards the Autobahn for an Autobahn blast. So, Sport Classic is available in this Sport Grey with this light Sport Grey decal running over the top. Very cool, sort of a subtle striping, which I think suits the car well. This bonnet is also specific to the Sport Classic because it is carbon fiber, and you have this indentation in it which matches the indentation in the roof. So you have sort of a double bubble roof, and that double bubble continues on the bonnet, so that line continues all the way across, which is very cool. And just looking at the car, you immediately sense that something is up. Apart from the ducktail, that sort of subtle change, you do notice it. You do notice that something is up here, which is very cool. And of course, especially when you sit here and you see the massive rear arch, because this car gets a turbo body. So you get a 50mm wider rear arch, which just looks so cool, especially because you don't have the turbo intake on the side there. So it's just flowing, and it just gives the car such a sexy hip. It really does. It's just, the stance of the car is really immaculate. So you also get these Fuchs inspired wheels with a center lock, which is very cool. This is just a gorgeous wheel. 255 tires, and this is a 20-inch wheel. Behind that you get carbon ceramic brakes as standard, with black calipers and white lettering to give it sort of a retro classic look. It is also rear wheel drive. So I said that this layout, you don't have it on another 911 of the 992 generation. Maybe on the 992.2 there will be a version available with a manual turbo, or maybe even rear wheel drive. Maybe this is also to sort of test the waters to see if people are interested, but it also means that you have a different front suspension setup. So they tweaked the suspension to compensate for the fact that you don't have front wheel drive. You don't have that weight on the front axle as well. So it's basically the 992 GTS turbo layout for the front suspension. You get these really cool exclusive manufacturer badges with actual gold on them. As I said, the double bubble roof here, you can actually feel the little edge there. And then at the rear you get this massive 315 rubber on a 21-inch wheel, and it just fits this rear arch beautifully. Now, as I said, you don't have an air intake there like with the turbo, but they did need that air to go to the engine. So what they did is, on top of the ducktail here, which is like my favorite part of the car. I mean, look at that. Let's just take a moment to enjoy that. That is just stunning. But they made two big air channels here to suck in air to go to the engine. You also get this Porsche Heritage badge and a nice design for the grating, which also is a bit old school, I would say. And of course you get the beautiful LED bar running across, and the Porsche letters in gold as well. I mean, this is, yeah. It's unfortunate that they only made 1,250 of these, and that most of them will never see an actual road, because It is so cool. It is achingly cool. I think this is like the perfect setup of a 911. So let's see if we can show you anything. Don't think so, no. So you get a Sport Classic badge there, but below here you will find the 3.8 liter bi-turbo engine from the 911 turbo, but with a little bit less power. So the turbo has 580 and 750 newton meters of torque. This has 550 and 600 newton meters of torque. So minus 30 horsepower and 150 newton meters, because this gearbox couldn't take that amount of torque. So this gearbox is actually the 7-speed from the regular Carrera S and not the 6-speed from the GT3, because this 7-speed actually has a similar housing to the PDK, which makes it easier to fit it to the turbo engine. So this was just a better solution. And also I don't know how much torque the 6-speed can take, but I think it's too much for either. So 550 horsepower, 600 newton meters of torque, but believe me, it is enough. It is really a nice amount of power. And as you can see, you also get this awesome interior with the Pepita houndstooth cloth fabric, really nice on the seats as well. And you get this cognac leather everywhere. Beautiful, beautifully soft leather as well on top here. And then the wood trim, which is open pore, so you can feel that wood. So you can just feel the structure there, which is great. And leather down here, even Sport Classic badge, and then these sort of retro old school floor mats, which I really like as well. And then I'll show you the bonnet as well, don't forget about that, or the front lid, which, as I said, is carbon fiber. So is the roof, by the way. And this is not the case on a regular 911, so that is very cool. Saves a bit of weight as well, of course. It weighs 1645 wet, so that's also not bad. And then interior wise, you get such a nice ambiance. I really love it. It feels classic, it feels friendly, it feels welcoming, and not as sterile and as business-like as most Porsches we drive. Because unfortunately, also if you look at Porsches that are for sale, 992s specifically or especially, they all have black interiors. Almost all of them just completely covered in black leather, which is nice, but it's a bit boring. And this just gives you an idea of how nice a Porsche interior can be. And you can do stuff like this as well, but it's quite expensive at Porsche. Also have this really cool 911 Sport Classic badge there. This is number 65 of 1250. That is just gorgeous. And this exclusive manufacturer logo here embossed in the leather as well. Yeah, this is like peak Porsche for me. This is definitely peak 992. I prefer this over a GT3 or a GT3 RS. I think this is so much cooler, and it drives incredibly well. So let's have a drive. Why don't we? So I'll start it up in sport mode. In sport mode you get the burbles, in Sport Plus you don't, but I'll let you guys hear that in a sec. You also have a rear seat, which is really nice. You have some storage back there as well. It's quite a practical car. And then you have the 7-speed, as I said, so you have 1, 3, 5 and 7 on top there. It does take some getting used to, because you have 4 options at the top there. So this is like 7. Normally you would be, yeah, it just, your muscle memory is not ready for that. But it's not bad. So let's have a little drive. What time is it? It's almost 6 in the evening. So we'll see. Should be not too busy at the Autobahn. Okay, so let me start with what it's like to drive regularly. Okay, so we'll do the tunnel first. See, there are the burbles. That's only a sport mode. Sport Plus, the burbles go away. It has a nice deep sound. It has a modified exhaust from the Turbo S, so it does get its own sort of tweaked sound. But let me go back to normal mode, because I think this is like maybe underestimated how good this car is on a normal drive, because I just drove this car here and the highway was closed, so I had to do like a lot of little villages and some nice forest roads as well. Just poodling along in this car is so amazing, and it turns every drive into a nice one, because you have that manual gearbox with that turbo engine. It's such a nice experience. It's difficult to explain why it is so nice, because normally you would think like, you know, GT3 Turbo S, GT3 RS, those are the things that everyone is drooling over, but there's something really special about high-powered manual cars with a turbo engine. So let's do a launch control, 0 to 100, 4.1 seconds, 3,500 RPM. Yeah, it just bogs down a little bit, so you need to be right on the money with the amount of clutch slip you allow for you to be able to do 4.1. But getting back to turbo manual cars, of course that Sport Classic was the 997, but also the last time that you had a rear-wheel drive turbo engined manual available was the GT2, also 997. We also drove that car and I absolutely loved that. That might be my favorite Porsche I've ever driven. And this kind of feels like that. This is a much more civilized version, of course, but it has that same character. And I think that is the coolest thing about this. It has a personality. It feels like you have to drive it, actually drive it. When you drive a Turbo S with a PDK, you know, it's an amazing car. It's so capable. It is an absolute rocket ship. But it sort of feels like you're a passenger on this crazy machine. And when you take off with that PDK gearbox and it just catapults itself basically towards the horizon, yeah, you're a passenger. And in this it feels like you are actually the one catapulting it in all those different gears, and it's just a great feeling. Oh, and you also have a green face and green illuminated dials on this car to give it sort of a classic look, which is also very cool. And of course you have auto blip for the gearbox. But before we hit the Autobahn, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Rotor. Now let me paint you a word picture, right? So it's Sunday morning, early, crisp, cold air, and you're getting ready to go for a drive in your lovely car. Of course, what do you need? Driving gloves. Every petrol head needs a pair of good driving gloves, and these are beautiful. This is super soft sheepskin. It comes in this great pouch, and the leather is cut with a laser to ensure the perfect fit and is then hand sewn. So this is a handcrafted driving glove with a very cool detail. This button is the Fuchs wheel that you saw on this car, on the Sport Classic as well. So we thought this would be a good match because it has that same vibe, right? This driving glove and that Sport Classic, it just works. So these are a perfect gift for yourself if you've been looking for a driving glove, or for any other petrol head for Christmas or whatever. It's just a really nice gift, I think. Quality is great. They have a couple different versions available. So this is the cognac version, but they also have black, green and red. So if you want to pick up driving gloves for yourself or any other friend that needs them, make sure you check out rotor.nl and use code AUTOTOPNL for a discount. Enjoy the video. yeah, it really has that GT2 character. It's a lot more polished, but it has that same thing. That rear wheel drive manual turbo feel is just, it's so good. You can't get it a lot. I mean, we have it in the M3 as well, in the G80. So a fourth gear pull on the highway. Look at that. Nice quick. Nice quick. So when you have, like, this is the weird part, 6 gears right here, and then you have to go to 5th. It's not all the way top right because that's 7th, so you have to go like that, and then the rest is normal, but it does feel a bit weird. It does sound good. It's quite a full-bodied sound. I feel like it's a little bit more full-bodied than the turbo. This rain wasn't predicted, so I hope that it's not too bad. I don't think it's actually getting worse, so... So 100 to 200, we did a 7.4, which is pretty respectable for a manual car with 550 horsepower, I would say. I mean, it's quick. It's not turbo-esque quick, of course. It's not as relentless, but it feels properly quick. Also, because you have a manual, you also have this brake in the acceleration. And then you get on it again, and that also feels nice. Prices, I think, you know, in most countries these things started at, like, I don't know, just below 300k, and they have gone up dramatically. So I think one just sold today or yesterday for like 750k with a very low mileage. This thing has done 4,000 kilometers, and it's owned by the importer for Porsche in the Netherlands. But yeah, they were basically immediately sold out when they were announced. So this should be the dry side. A little bit windy there. Top speed is 315 kilometers an hour. That's 315 on the speedo, but that's not 315 real kilometers. It's not really wet, by the way, here, so don't worry about that. This is just, it's dry. But, you know, it doesn't have too much trouble reaching that. We've been wondering what this would be like for ever since they introduced the 992 and the 992 Turbo and the Turbo S. We were wondering what would it be like to drive this car with a manual, and the fact that they now did this, or last year, is so amazing. Because it is everything I hoped it would be, and then some. You know, with this special edition, this limited edition, with all this cognac leather and the Pepita cloth seats. This car is such a vibe, and I love it. And I really hope that it is, you know, a sign that we're getting more of this. The GT3 Touring, after all, was also introduced after the 911R was such a big hit, and everyone was like selling it at a premium. So I hope that this car is selling out so quickly and people drooling over them means that Porsche decides that, you know, we deserve a 992.2 turbo manual and maybe even a rear-wheel drive version, but we'll see. Last little run towards the border. 5th gear pull, very strong. That's it. Have to brake here. Oh, those carbon ceramics. What a car. Oh my god, this is like, this is Porsche perfection. This is Porsche perfection. Amazing. Massive thanks to Porsche in the Netherlands for letting us have a go. You know, this is peak 911. I absolutely love it. I hope you enjoyed it too. You can subscribe by clicking the big button in the middle. You can also check out this video, this playlist, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye.